Morning, Jonas.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Broth. Hi, Jonas.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
It's a rainy day in Fort Collins.
Yeah, what's up with that? 2 days in a row.
I know.
It's like a Swedish summer. Crap.
I don't mind after all that heat.
Yeah, I agree.
Did I join the meeting wrong? I don't see my name, but I see LFN new projects. I think I did something wrong. I'm going to leave the meeting and come back in. Bye.
Bye. How can you even join without showing up?
Well, that's what I wonder. Hey, Lewis, you're here. What did I do wrong? I came in as LFN new projects. I clicked the wrong link, huh?
Did you Zoom bomb us, Susan?
Did I do what?
No, that used to be a thing back in the days when Zoom had some issues. People were Zoom bombing, just joining random meetings and displaying inappropriate.
Oh gosh, that sounds like me. Okay, I'll be right back. Bye.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear us, Luis?
Yeah, hi there. Yep.
Hi there.
How's everyone? Oh, what happened to Casey? I saw him on and then he dropped off. Oh, maybe that's Susan.
That was Susan. She didn't see herself in the meeting, so she decided to try to join again.
Oh, I'm glad that she's using the new projects bridge. That's exactly what it's meant for.
Oh,
Barath, it did it again. I'm coming in as the host. Lewis, what did I do wrong? I want to be myself.
No, no, you're logged into the new project Zoom, which is a good thing. So you would be the host. In order to, you'd have to go to zoom.us and log out of this one and go to your other account. But it's actually good to stay on as the new projects person, because that's what this bridge is for this type of thing.
I'm completely confused.
Me too.
Sorry,
I clicked the
missed.
link
Oh.
in Barath's
Yes.
invitation.
Yes. Oh yeah, it has nothing to do with that. But you're logged in as in Zoom. You're logged in as Zoom new projects because I gave you the credentials. So you'd have to go to zoom.us and
log out.
log out of new projects and log in as Susan. That's what you.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you could just rename yourself and just stay on this bridge, which is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Because,
But I'll know that for next time. It's because I was doing things like putting the recording in from last week and stuff like that. Okay.
But it's perfectly okay to attend this call on that bridge, because that's what the bridge is for. So that's the reason why we have it anyway. So it's actually a good thing.
Okay. I don't want to be the.
Yeah, see, I used to log in on that one, if you remember, but now since I, handed off to Casey and gave you the credentials, I come in as myself.
Okay, I don't know if it should be me that's the host. Okay. I still think I'm
I
gonna log out
think-
and log back in. I'll be right back. You guys go right ahead.
I'm actually host also, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm co-host as well,
Okay.
so not a big deal.
I think we mostly have quorum, right? So
Yeah.
at this point, I think we should inform everyone that recording started, and then we have to supposed to show the LF antitrust policy.
Somebody wants to pull that up.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you. Yep. So you'll find the antitrust policy on the Linux Foundation website as well as the project website. The policy is important where multiple companies, including potential industry competitors, are participating in meetings. Please review the policy, and if you have any questions, contact your company legal counsel. Members of the LF may contact the law firm of Gassmeyer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the LF. Okay, take it away. Thank you.
So first we have a issue with, for architectural issues, we have a discussion on the MTF profiles. So Jonas, you want to go through this? Or?
Are we expecting to vote on these?
Not me, for sure.
Yes, I know, but just want to make sure we have quorum.
I don't think so. I think this is because I detected a couple of different ways to go here. So I wrote a proposal, and I think that this needs to be discussed and changed to something that is good enough for voting. I don't think we're there, Alex. So.
Okay.
Because I don't. So the only thing I did here was basically saying, yada yada, Redfish. This is the situation, and then Redfish has profiles because Redfish is an open standard. It's flexible, and which has led to a massive amount of adoptions out in the industry. And then we have the issue or the problem with that is that everybody adopted this slightly differently. And then we have interoperability issues. And this is why DMTF invented profiles. So I just positioned that. And then if you go down a little bit, for us, I kind of just introduced what Redfish profiles is in ODIM and in what good it will do. And he basically is there to explain to northbound clients what to expect, as well as giving some sort of regulatory framework, or if you will, for the plugin developers, so that they know that these are the type of properties that needs to be present. Otherwise, ODIM will not work. And then, apart from all this, the bigger call, the larger idea here is that if we can introduce these profiles in ODIM and get some sort of can socialize them in the industry and get some sort of a pressure on hardware vendors, we should be able to get them to adopt those properties as being something that they would support. And once that has happened, there is hardly any interoperability issue anymore, and we don't need any specific closed source plugin to be interoperable. We can have closed source plugins for other reasons. Perhaps somebody wants to expose some value adds or what have you. So that's really the way we take this platform that we have today, that is basically addressing a couple of issues and provide some value add on top, and make it something that we can use to drive interoperability across the industry. So what I'm proposing is that we go over the profiles. That's the first bullet, and we improve them so that everybody gets a say. I know a lot of companies have been involved, specifically on the Intel side. John Leong has been involved on the OCP profile, so there's probably a lot of viewpoints and good proposals from a lot of people here. So I think we should do that. And then we need to then enhance the current open source plugins that we have in place. I'm talking about the generic Redfish plugin, so that thing is supporting the profiles and the properties in there. And if we have other plugins that we have open sourced, Cisco, what have we, there is also a Fabric profile, so they need to comply with that. And then we might want to improve, change, or if it's already supported, make a configuration to the BMC simulator so that supports the profiles. And now we have all the tools we need to create a CI/CD pipeline that will test anything that is contributed to the project with the profiles on a continuous basis. So if something would break, it would break, and we can look at it. Do we need to update the profiles? Perhaps we do. Something changed in the industry. Perhaps there are new properties or what have you in a new spec. Or do we need to reject the contribution because it broke something? And then you just continue to refine the profiles as new requirements are coming in and new specs and these type of things. What I have not said here, and that I picked up last meeting, was we should use the OCP profiles and try to work on those to align this. And the reason I don't do that is I think we are coming in from a slightly different angle when we talk about profiles than OCP is. OCP has a platform that is well defined, but it's not something that is adopted across the industry. We don't have OCP from all vendors, so they have a different agenda slightly than we do. We want to see interoperability across all the vendors, and and we also have the whole Fabric thing, which doesn't exist in OCP. But if you still think that we can work with OCP and get all our requirements in there, then fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jonas, I would say that a better, maybe more expedient way forward would be to, well, first, these are not DMTF profiles, they're OCP profiles. And they were specifically created to prescribe some degree of interoperability. So rather than saying we've got something way better, maybe we can use an embrace and extend approach and work within the OCP community to define these profiles, or even refine the ones that exist to include additional capabilities. OCP not only has the hardware platform management group, but they also now have software projects related to OpenBMC and other things. And so to me, us coming in as a fledgling community with no real following yet, and saying we've got these profiles, you have to comply with them, that's not going to work.
Well, hold on. What do you mean when you say you have to comply? Oh, you mean like tell hardware vendors? Is that what you mean?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. Why should they? If they don't see some degree of uptake.
But OCP is basically in the same situation there, because them going and telling Dell that you need to comply with OCP profiles is, why would they?
Well, so the key here is not to tell Dell or HPE for that matter, or anybody to comply. The key is to get the operators, the customers, to require those as part of RFPs. That's how you would do it, right? Because telling somebody to do something is kind of, well, that has very, low percentage of positive outcomes, right? Each company has their own directions and their own roadmaps, but what drives those roadmaps are customer requirements. So if we can get companies that are part of OCP, like Nokia, Red Hat, Ericsson, others, to require something like this in order to manage, heterogeneous environments, then I think that would be a better way of doing things. And if we can get, the AT&Ts and the Verizons and everybody else in the world to require that from the RFP perspective, that would be even better.
Mm. I agree, but I think there is a slight. The devil is in the details, right? So it would be better to work with OCP and get if we can get behind both organizations to set up profiles. I think that would be a better message to the industry. I totally agree with that, Alex. But when you start looking at what properties we have, and then for each of those properties that are not in OCP, we now need to go and try to push it in there. I think that process might be slightly more complicated and longer than if we just did it ourselves. That's my only.
I can't imagine that. Yeah, I mean, you may be right, but at the same time, I don't think we have to push one property at a time. I think we can provide a contribution between, the member companies here that basically proposes, some number of changes to the profile, and I don't think it has to be one at a time. That would be extremely inefficient.
Yeah, so my assumption is, as part of the OCP profiles, and Jonas, correct me if I'm wrong here, because you did them, right, is that, did you keep all the original properties that were in the OCP profiles, and what you did was added to that rather than replace, right?
Yeah,
okay,
so
well,
OCP is a subset. You're right, Martin. But there might have been some changes to permissions of properties as well. Perhaps OCP said that something needed to could be optional, and I then said it's mandatory. So there could be some changes there.
Right.
Would it be possible to check with guys from OCP, like John, for instance?
Yeah, I actually invited him to this meeting, but he is nowhere to be found. Maybe he's on vacation.
I mean, I'm assuming that, again, so the OCP, when was the last contribution to the server profiles on OCP? It's a while ago, right?
Actually, yeah, it used to be like 2 years old, I think, or something. But then John Leong, I pulled it down this morning and I checked the Git repository. John Leong has done some contributions the last couple of months here, so there has been some activity. So we are not in the position of saying they're horribly old, nobody's looking at them, because that's the situation we have with ours instead. We haven't updated ours in a while, I guess. Yeah. Well, in a few months ago we did.
Yeah, but actually it is useful that it's, okay, so they've been updated, but at least it's John. So that's a good thing. So yeah, it's a shame he's not on this call then, Alex. It would be good to get his opinion on this.
I am trying to raise him. I see that he is not out of the office, so I'm gonna try and get him in here. So
yeah, no, that'll be good. It's just, because I can see, I think there's a lot of merit by us making a contribution into OCP that enhances what they have. I mean, I cannot believe they're going to push back, as long as it doesn't sort of tread all over what they've done, i.e. remove things.
Yeah, we make things backward compatible, Martin. I agree with you. I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying as well, is that the lack of contributions is not indicative that they're not interested. It's just that, everything, it's a gift economy in open source. So, if somebody has time to work on it and they can contribute and get consensus to approve, then more power to those companies.
Yeah.
How many members here are members of OCP as well? Is Tieto a member of OCP?
No, we are not.
Okay, what about AMI?
I need to check with my.
I'm pretty sure you guys
yeah,
are, because you donated the open BMC implementation.
yeah. I think we
So-
are part of in some OCP groups, so I need to check and confirm in the next meeting. Sorry.
And HP and Intel are. So, and and not to leave out Jonas, I think Red Hat is as well, very actively participating. And potentially there's a way to collaborate there also with the Red Hat.
Did I drop or did I?
I think the way forward would be to build a coalition of the willing, as I like to call these things, right? And then say, okay, let's go and write up a joint proposal for OCP that is backed by multiple companies, and see what happens.
Yeah.
So just to conclude on this proposal that I wrote here, I'm happy to change that because if you guys are aligned that you feel we should at least try with OCP, we should put that in the proposal, I think.
I think so. I think we should try in the first place.
Yeah.
The worst thing that can happen is it gets rejected, right? Which would be a bit strange, to be honest, because typically, open source, it's driven by the members, right, by the community.
Yes. By the way, just for completeness, it's only been like HP and Intel speaking. Muti, do you have anything to add to this? What's your feeling? And also, Daniel, please jump in and or it's Martin, I guess.
Yeah, from AMI side, the proposal, like my understanding is that this is a kind of like subset of this DMTF, like ODIM profiles are subset of DMTF Redfish profiles, or it is like an integrated version of Redfish and OCP profiles, something like that.
So there's no such thing as a DMTF profile. There are OCP Redfish profiles.
Yeah.
And so this is meant to create a superset of what's there, or improve upon what's there, not to change anything that exists. In other words, we wouldn't remove any of the information elements, right? We would add new ones if we had to.
Okay, so if in future we will have a set of like ODIM profiles, right? ODIM profiles in order to.
Well, that's what we're kind of saying, is we would take that work directly to OCP. We can certainly craft the changes in ODIM, but then ultimately companies that are member companies in OCP, we can present that on behalf of everybody who is behind it.
Yeah, definitely these changes will have an impact on a product like Composer, our Composer product, because we need to adopt all these like new profiles implementation in the ODIM side, also into our orchestration side. So that's the input I have right now.
Okay. I mean, I think everyone's going to be impacted. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We write BMC implementations inside Intel. We also work with you guys on BMC implementations. Yes, there will be some amount of change that has to be supported over time. But that's actually what we want to do, is to kind of make sure that the BMC implementations are consistent and they can emit the right data, so that we can leverage it, right, in a consistent way. That's part of the equation here, and interoperable way. So I think I think there will be changes, and that's something we would be willing to take on. I would imagine, if we thought this was important.
Yeah, got it.
Folks from Tieto, you have any comments?
Well, basic proposal, at least I like the proposal. The only thing is what was mentioned before, that the devil sits in details. So how it's really gonna to be implemented and how much of the disruption is gonna to introduce. Other than that, so it's like if it serves the purpose, so this I'm completely fine.
Okay.
Well, so the question is, do you agree with because obviously there is disruption, right? Which takes, so therefore there's got to be a benefit, right, in having it. So
Yeah.
do you see the benefit in having standardized profiles?
Yeah, at least from the idea perspective is completely. I completely agree that it brings the benefits and it gives like a kind of the flexibility, right, to the to ODIM itself. But as I said, so it's like, so it depends on also on this industry and the guys who are going to use it on the daily basis. So whether it's really something that is required. What is desired in terms of like implementation and use of the ODIM, but I assume that this is the case, and you have checked guys that already.
Okay. So what's the plan then? Do we need to add something to this proposal then?
I think I would just add that perhaps a little bit of a strategy section, or that mention that we will try to work with OCP and align on a set of profiles with them, and then if I think if we exhaust that and it doesn't work, then we can have this discussion again, right?
Yeah,
well, I think we kind of need to do a little bit more, right? I mean, we actually had a couple of different starting points, one from HPE, one from Intel, I believe. And if there are others, obviously we kind of need to coalesce all that together, and and then maybe there's a little working group, and John Leong as the VP of alliances at OCP can figure out how to get this adopted. He could be our guy.
Yeah. So Alex, when you say that the starting points, did Intel put together some profiles for ODIM as well, or what?
I believe
was your...
we would. Oh crap! He left. I believe Rafal had a proposal as well.
Okay.
It's just that he just disappeared off the meeting, so I don't know.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, you could create a branch for that or something. We have a branch, and we could look at them, and then we can merge them, and then we can start. But I think for the proposal, I don't know what would you guys have planned for here as far as voting. For adopting the proposal, I think we need to just make a change that we intend to work with OCP on this. And then if you guys want to vote, I think forming working groups and things of that nature is something we don't need to vote about, right? That's more of a,
We probably don't even need to vote on this either, But let's do this. Let's just, so no one has any, buyer's remorse down the line. Let's give folks a little bit of time to review this and to chime in. And if, say, we hear nothing by next Wednesday, then we would just, adopt this as a way forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. I'll make the changes. So if that's done, back to you, Laura.
Okay, so the next topic was properties for update service. This was proposed by Rafael, but since he isn't here, I think we'll have to.
Yeah, he disappeared.
Yeah. Okay, so the next again is the support for the Redis streams. I have updated it so that it's hopefully clearer. So Alex, what I have done is, made changes here, explicitly calling out a message bus interface, which is there already for Go language. All right, so what would happen, say today we have this scenario and the blue where Kafka is the only message queue that's used. So we have a message bus interface to which the Kafka driver is implemented. So the event service on the north side and the plugin on the south side, they both use this interface, and whatever operations are required are there in the driver code, right? So when so the rest of the system is not impacted by what exactly the message bus is being used. So now if we shift to Redis, what we do is we again use the same interface and then provide a new driver, which is shown in yellow here, so that the rest of the system is protected from any change.
This is what always confuses me. When you say driver and you point to the plugin, I am confused because I guess if you are the plugin developer and you decide on language X, then if there is a driver or some translation thing or something in that language, then fine. Otherwise, I guess you are just using some other means to communicate with a message bus, right?
Yeah, so when we add support for either a new message bus or a language, we have to re-implement the driver part.
So maybe a simpler way is to not even worry about what the plugins do, because they could be plugins or they could be implemented inside the BMC natively. But if what we're basically saying, what's important to say is that we have a standard API that the event service exposes. And that's the API that the plugins and everybody else should use to communicate with the event service. And that's defined in the spec. Now, behind those APIs, the implementation of the event service could be done in such a way that it's Redis or Kafka or something else, or both, or multiple, right? But that's an implementation detail. And so, or a commercialization detail. What's important is to say, look, there's a standard eventing API. It's defined by DMTF, and everyone agrees that that's how we're going to communicate. The implementation of that interface, right? And we decouple the implementation from the interface. The implementation can be done using any of the industry accepted buses, as long as they are capable of supporting the right API semantics, right? So it could be Kafka, it could be Redis, it could be something else.
Well, we need to support that as well, right? The project needs to, so we know we support Kafka, obviously, and then now there is a configuration file that will dictate.
Yes, but what I'm saying, Jonas, is that the plugins have nothing to do with this. The plugins would never talk.
Yeah.
The contract, the interface contract between the eventing service and the plugins, or any other service for that matter, is defined by DMTF. That's the specification. And so we need to honor that contract. What happens inside the plugin internally stays inside the plugin, okay? But what we're basically saying is that we're going to allow for flexibility of implementations of the eventing service based on different bus technologies, right? So to me, there's no need for a Kafka driver or a Redis driver on the plugin side. What's there is the standard eventing API. But
then how does the plugin publish it to the event service, right?
But
based on the interfaces defined.
But actually today, if you look at a plugin, it's sticking things on the Kafka bus, and that has nothing to do with the MTF.
Well, then I don't understand. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if we're going to do this right, there's an eventing service. It has interfaces for consumption and for provision of certain things, right? So that's the interface we should standardize on for cross-component communication. How the event service is implemented could be company specific. So Intel could use some crazy bus technology that we have. or we could use what the hell is the ONAP version? Spacing on it, but anyway, there are lots of ways we can implement it, but the interface remains consistent. That's what we want to do.
That's what the message bus interface is, right? Like it's just a a specification wherein we have some 5 operations, and then the driver would just see the plugin will push the JSON events, right? Currently, that goes through Kafka, and event service also has the understanding of that JSON, which is the MTF standard. So this
Yeah.
interface is only to transfer data via this message bus.
But can you tell me something, Bharat? Because I know we tried to chat about this, and on the plugin side, right? If you have something that you call a message bus interface, so here's the deal: who's providing that? Is the ODIM project providing that for the different languages any plugin developer wants to potentially use? Is that what you're saying? Because I think.
So that's what I'd say, like the interface itself is just an interface. It doesn't have any implementation. The driver implements that interface. So when we are talking about, say, somebody is adding a plugin to the ODIM repository with say Python, then they implement they specify the same thing in say an abstract base class, because
But why do we
Python
care? Because they just gonna do a plugin, and as long as they stick the right thing on the message bus, it's their headache if they want to have an abstraction layer or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So can we look at the eventing API in the latest version of the spec?
Yeah, sure. The thing you're missing, I think, Alex, is that when we developed plugins initially, we decided that if we had the eventing APIs between the plugin and the event service of ODIM, it would be it's using rests and posts and stuff, and it would be extremely slow compared to a real message bus. So that's why we went in that direction back in the days. And we were thinking back then as well that, oh yeah, eventually we're going to use the message bus also for telemetry, before we realized that telemetry is a much bigger thing that we need to discuss. Right?
Yeah, we don't have to use REST. We can use gRPC. We can agree on something, but I just want to make sure that whatever we could, the contract between the plugin suppliers, whoever they are, and ODIM would be based on the MTF definitions, not based on presupposition that we're going to use one bus or another or something else.
But
no.
As
So
published in the developer guide.
That's not the case. See, the eventing is using GMTF event standards only, right? The message bus interface is just the way to connect to whichever message bus we are using. So the payload is independent of the message bus interface. So we
no. But what Alex is saying is that on the between the plugin and ODIM, RA, or whatever you want to call ODIM, there should be standardized DMTF interfaces. What I'm saying is, yes, that's fine, but from the very beginning, as published in the developer's guide, the message bus is key of placing events into the ODIM event service, and it's not DMTF standardized.
Yeah.
And we might need to change that. I don't know, but that's what it is today, right?
But there's some strong reasons behind that, though, right? In terms of scalability.
Yes. So
Indeed.
message bus is just the transport, right? So we're using this message bus as just a transport. Tomorrow, I could implement the same message bus interface using HTTPS, and but you know that'll.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think maybe the picture is a little bit off, right? So look at it this way: the eventing service itself, the event service, could be, provides 2 modes of operation. There's a push and a pull, right? So or a pub and a sub. That I'm looking at the spec right now. So there's a subscription service, There are other APIs as well. There's even a thing that says OpenSSE connection for streaming. So there is a contract already defined in the spec, but that I would imagine we want to keep consistent if I'm writing a plugin. Now, if we decide to go the gRPC route, that's fine, but we would need to keep we would want to make things compatible, right, in terms of the actual payloads. What I'm saying is that when that API endpoint is invoked, how it then transports or provides the publication service or the subscription service could be done through Kafka or through Redis. So it's kind of like standard Redfish APIs between the plugin and the event service, implemented using whatever protocol we desire. And then behind the event service APIs, the implementation would either be Kafka or Redis, and the plugins would be, or the drivers, as you call them, would be hidden behind the abstract interface.
So
Right.
Alex, that's an excellent proposal, but that's not how it works today. Is my only.
Well, so I understand. So if we're going to base everything on how it works today, then we're probably not going to get anywhere. Because
No, but one of the original direction was that, ODIM plugin is just an extension of ODIM array. There is no DMTF, the same, right, compliance issues there. The plugin will say the bottom machines like BMC or the Fabric controllers, they would publish the events on JSON, which is a format specified by DMTF.
the plugins were originally necessary because we wanted to support legacy. And legacy would only be an issue if we actually had 20 hardware ODMs or OEMs in the room. So,
yeah, so Alex, sorry, but that's not, guys, just steer me right here, but that's not completely correct, right? In terms of, there is actually a generic Redfish plugin, which you would need to use. And the reason, and that plugin actually has two interfaces. There's one that communicates with the message bus, and the other one is a REST interface for doing, operational stuff, right? And two different interfaces. And so, it's not just legacy, right? It's just the way that ODIM is built.
Yeah. So I get it. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is, if we look at section 14, then I think it'll be easier to understand what I'm saying.
Okay. Bring that up.
But I think, yeah, we can, while you bring that up, I think what we have ended up in now is a discussion on what's going on between plugin and ODIM, when we should really be talking about how do we enable the ability to go between different message buses in ODIM, because that's really what the proposal is about. Yeah. And what is obscuring this a little bit is that you have a message bus interfaces and a driver on the plugin side. When I think in the developer's guide, we don't care about how anybody is implementing the plugin as long as they follow the developer's guide. Am I right, Bharat?
No, we will care, because when the message comes through the bus, say, suppose you're saying that, a person, people who are implementing a plugin in Python, they can do in whatever way they can. But what we have to remember is what is getting transported is the events, right? The DMTF events. They should not be changed, and hopefully they will not. But then when they publish, say, to even Kafka, now the Kafka, they should invoke, all they need to do is invoke the right operations on Kafka, which will publish on the topic, the JSONs, and so that event service, which is consuming from Kafka, just consumes it, and then it gets a JSON.
I disagree with that approach.
Hmm.
So are you, Bharat, proposing changes to the developer's guide then, so that you have to follow a certain model when you code for putting stuff on the arbitrary event bus or message bus?
Hmm.
Is that what you're proposing here? Because in that case it makes sense, but I'm thinking, you know, you're basically dictating here that they need a driver and they need a message bus interface on the plugin side, and I'm not sure. I'm starting to understand why, but I'm not sure I'm quite there yet.
See, why that message bus interface, and let's see why it's needed. Say like currently the plugins are all developed in Go language, right? So what happens is that when the rest of the plugin code functionality wants to invoke that message bus, we have a particular interface we can call. So even if the actual message bus changes, when that happens, the drivers are changed, because say a publish in Kafka may be called by one method, but in Redis the name would adaptation requirement will be different, right? But what happens when we have this is that plugin code doesn't change. It's only the driver that adapts to the well-known interface.
But
Okay.
again, if you look at the plugin as a black box, do we care how it's implemented, as long as it's complying with communication and actually what is sticking on the message bus?
So that is the second part I was describing, and which is that, you know, the message bus semantics should be the same. Now, when they publish, however, with whatever interface they have or driver they don't have, they've written a monolithic code that publishes the events. As long
Okay.
as event service is able to read from that message bus, I don't really care, right? But if we are having this, then it could be a way of reuse. And
Yeah, but that could be an internal decision from a plugin developer. May it be an individual or a community or even a company, how they want to you know, implement the plugin to make it reusable.
yes.
Because they, right?
Yeah. So really the issue for a plugin developer is that they should know to publish events into the message bus regardless of what it is. Today it's Kafka, tomorrow it's Redis,
Yeah.
and some other. They should know which is the way, say we are using topics, right? So they publish on that topic, and so that in a way that event service on ODIM side is able to read.
So
Yeah.
I disagree with that, right? Because what I should be using is the standard interface for the event service.
There is no standard interface for events because we're using buses here.
No, listen,
See,
look at
this-
section 14 of the spec.
Can you bring that up, Alex? It's all right.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah, I'll stop you.
problem. Yeah, I can bring
Or
it.
if you tell me which it is, then I will share it.
It's
It might
section
just be.
four-
It might just
I
be
got
an
it. I got the thing up on the screen, so I can show you.
Yeah, good. It's just this might be an interpretation thing, I'm thinking, but let's see.
How do I share in this?
At the bottom, you have a share screen in green.
Oh, yes. Okay, so section 14 has a specification for how to publish events and how to subscribe to the events and what the event formats look like. And to me, subscribing to events, there is a section on opening a streaming connection. There's a section that says post a subscription collection, right? There are rules for how you use eventing, okay? And there's also information about payloads in this section of what the event payload should contain. I'm not saying anything here that hasn't been said for the last, I think, 20 years. It's a principle of interface abstraction. This is the interface that is defined, but on the back end of that interface, how you implement it could be using whichever technology you want. The plugins that we're really talking about are mostly hardware embedded plugins, right? I mean, like if an Intel box has a BMC, that
No,
BMC will support
plugin.
native Redfish APIs.
Yeah, but the plugin we're talking about here is actually dedicated to ODIM.
Yeah.
But
It's
if this
not
is
a
the
VM.
eventing service that I'm supposed to use, I don't understand why I now have to worry about a particular implementation of that eventing service.
When you say
No.
do,
This
are
is
you a
not an event
client
service.
or?
This is not an event service, Alex. If I can share it, if you allow me to share.
Sure.
You have to stop sharing unless you want me to take over.
Yeah, I can stop sharing.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So this is what maybe it was not very effective communicating that, but see the eventing mechanism that you're talking about is either the post or the SSC holds for this interface where the BMC or the fabric, Redfish enabled fabrics will uh, send the event, right? But once the plugin, this is the Redfish generic Redfish plugin of ODIM. It's not the device. So the device is at the bottom. So they will use the same interface that you're talking about, either the post or the SSE. There no difference of opinion there. But the plugins, once they aggregate events from multiple such devices, they will use the message bus to forward that to the event service. This was done keeping in mind the high volume of events that Martin earlier said. So
Yeah,
here, when we say message bus interface, it is not the event interface that you're talking about. This is just about using the message bus as a transport for the same event, right? So instead of communicating with the event service using either post or SSC, we send it via the message bus. And say Kafka or even Redis or whoever, they have additional benefits that they also can buffer the events. One thing is they can handle a lot of events traffic.
yeah, but how many
I think
events are you expecting, right? Events usually happen when something is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so you expect 20 million devices to say we're in bad shape?
No, well, if you look at how much events just a reboot generates, it's a storm of events. They're life cycle events. They're all sorts of stuff. So it depends on what the client wants to subscribe to, right?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, but for the most part, we're talking about yeah, so and then I would use the SSE approach to stream all that. And if the
Yeah, so
event-
that's totally correct when we're talking about BMC to plugin interface. Now it can support both, right? Current implement.
who writes the plugin?
So either the vendor or we have the generic Redfish plugin in our case, which is a sample, right? So
But
that will talk to the individual BMCs and subscribe for the events and then for receive those events. Once those events land up on the plugin, then that is forwarded to the event service.
what happens when the plugins are no longer necessary? We want to eliminate plugins. They create a level of
No, we never said that.
Yeah.
We always have this discussion, but we kept saying that you will always need a plugin, even if it's just a generic plugin, because that's how the architect looks today.
Well, so I'm looking at it from two perspectives, right? Barrier to adoption and how high it is, and also the cost of adoption, right? And what it means for a company that writes a particular set of, that wants to support ODIM, right? So we've defined ODIM as exposing Redfish APIs northbound and southbound. So from that point of view, we made things pretty straightforward. There was no mention of Kafka, stream, anything else for that matter. And as a hardware supplier, I would imagine that I just, either natively support the right set of Redfish APIs, or if I have legacy, I could transcode that into from IPMI, let's say, into something. But to me, if you really want to keep this, the barrier to adoption low, you want to keep you know, you want to have a standard interface as defined by
Manputi.
DMTF, and you're done.
No, that is the standard interface which the plugin exposes.
I
Like
just, what
so.
I'm saying is I don't want to have to write Kafka and Redis plugins. I really don't, because that means I have to test them and certify them and maintain them. And the cost of doing that is you're basically doubling the cost of what I have to do as a
So
vendor.
that is where the generic Redfish plugin is provided. See, there are two things about generic Redfish plugin. In an ideal world where everyone conforms exactly to Redfish, there is no other plugin needed other than generic Redfish plugin. It already has this Kafka, and now if we implement other message bus support, they'll also be there, right? So there are no changes required. The plugin on the south side, what it does is reconciliates. Say, suppose a vendor is not fully compliant with Redfish, the plugin will then make like translate those payloads into a redfish compliant payload and send it up, right? So if they are compliant, there is no need for a separate plugin at all. It is just to let them to adapt their proprietary implementation, and this can include non-redfish also, remember. So that basically generates a fully compliant redfish model and pushes it up. So here we are only talking about events. Now, as Martin said, the control path where there is a specific redfish request and response that uses HTTP, it doesn't use message bus. Okay, so if they are using the Go language implementation, then whatever, see, our plugins don't implement this again because it's already implemented as part of ODIM array, right? So what happens is we just reuse the library without any extra code written. We are able to develop plugin.
So,
So
okay.
so tomorrow, if we are say if somebody implements Python based driver on either side, then both the sides can use the same thing. We don't need, for every plugin instance, we don't need to write that. That is why the driver is called out, so that it's a reusable component on a language basis. So if you're just using Go to write new plugins, you don't try to do anything extra as of today.
But
Uh,
those are client side bindings to a DMTF defined interface. That I understand. And yeah, you know, anybody could develop those based on the implementation of their BMC or the plugins or what. I guess what I'm
But
saying is the boundary of the event service to me is actually all of the above. The plugins talk to to ODIM using the interfaces that we said we would allow them to use. And then what happens within ODIM to transport the events and to route them to all the subscribers, that is the part that is can be done in Kafka or in Redis or in anything else. But the actual subscription to events doesn't have to be done using Kafka or Redis. It can be done using an interface that is abstract. And
the
publishing a
subscription,
single event can be done exactly the same way, either through SSC or by doing a publish invocation.
the
Okay.
subscription itself happens from the HTTPS interface itself.
Yeah.
But the event, see, once the events land on the event service using any of the bus, right now is only Kafka, right? So the event service looks up the subscriptions and then forwards it using the HTTPS post itself. We don't use Kafka then for forwarding. So on the north side and the south side of event service and plugin, we are fully compliant with Redfish.
Okay, then this picture is truly really confusing, right? Because you're saying that, and maybe that's the part that I can't get past, because from a supplier perspective, I don't want them to worry about writing drivers for anything. They have a standard interface agreed upon by the industry to communicate events, to provide visibility into their platforms. And so that's what they should do.
Yeah, so that's where the plugin comes in, right? Because we have to reconcile their differences in their implementation. That's the major reason why we have the plugin. So once they say their BMCs or their devices don't have to know anything about Kafka or anything, they just publish it using either HTTPS post or SSE. Tomorrow, if the BMC vendors themselves like are willingly adopting gRPC, then they may publish in that also. That plugin will have to add a listener for gRPC, and then this message bus is for only the internal propagation between the plugin to the event service in ODIM array.
Okay.
So they don't mess with anything like anything in between, right? Just a plugin basically. So that's why the GRF is also provided as a reference. It's actually a working code. We can, if as long as we are sticking to pure redfish requests, supported by the device, it runs without change, right?
So, okay, I guess I need to draw an alternative picture.
But there are some use cases, not only the plugins, our ODIM services also may need to generate some events, right? In
Yes,
some use cases,
exactly.
like
yeah, we are, and
composition
we are
service.
using,
When composition is happened, it is good that we can generate an event. There is a composition success completed successfully or something like that. So in
yes.
that case, there also we may need to use the composition service may need to use this message bus interface. Is that right?
And we do that actually. Yes, we do that.
Okay.
Why?
Say like when the this thing device is say BMC is deleted from ODIM, right? It's basically a logical delete. So what we do is we'll clear the database of that device and then generate a resource removed event, which we'll never get from BMC because it will continue to be in operation, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So then things like unmanaged rack plugin and your composition service, and even the fabric plugins, because they have to clean up the connections and all that, right? They
Yeah.
can subscribe to that service, that event. And all we do is from the aggregation service publish this message and it reaches all of the subscribers. And we have seen it successfully run with URP, which is written from Intel and Aruba and other plugins.
Okay, you got it. So
Yeah.
since this diagram shows only the plugin component, that's what I wanted to confirm whether our
Yeah.
ODIM service is also like taking care of this.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I just heard was that, from a client perspective, from a consumer perspective, it could be another service inside ODIM, or it could be something outside ODIM.
Yes.
Okay, so if we were to look at that, then we would say ODIM service or BMC, or doesn't really matter what it is. Okay, something else, ... And well, let me show you what I've been trying to say and see how far off we are, if that's okay. Okay, so can you see my squiggles here?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, look, these are, these are just the different clients. Okay, there's an interface and then there's the implementation of the interface. This interface is defined by DMTF. So whatever communication I have from here to the interface, it's using DMTF defined semantics. So what happens then is that you can argue that there may be implementation specific adapters that live here. Okay. And these could be Redis, they could be right, that actually allow you to transport the events and to route them and do whatever you want to do in a way that makes sense, for a particular implementation. So the implementation is supplied by the implementer. The implementer in this case is whoever's commercializing ODIM. And if they choose to use, 25 other event buses, so be it. I might just use TIPCO. I might use something else. It really doesn't matter. I don't want to impact the clients. And that's why you have an abstract interface.
Yes.
That's how it should work, I think. So tell me how your diagram maps into this, if you agree with this.
See here, one thing is that when you say interface, this is the event service, right?
Yes.
So
This
I
is
would
a,
say,
this is a set of endpoints supplied by the event service. Okay, that's what this interface is. These are consumers. This is a producer of a service, right? The provider of a service. And the implementations could be different. I agree with you. They don't have to be the same. Okay. So now what I can do is I can remove this implementation, replace it by something else without disturbing anything else within the system. That's what I'd like to see, because then from a consumer point of view, Intel, HPE, anybody else who wants to consume the eventing service, right? Other ODIM services, composition, for example, right? Nothing changes. The payloads are still the same. The invocations are still the same. The invocation semantics are still the same. Where the change occurs, as you rightly said, is inside the implementation of the event service, right? And the pattern that I'm showing is a well-accepted, software architecture pattern.
yeah.
So why wouldn't we want to get to this?
Because see, the PMCs don't send it directly to the event service. It sends you the plugin, and then the plugin forwards that to the event
Well, I
service.
could send it to an aggregation service, and then the aggregation service will aggregate it and send it to whoever it needs to be sent. The plugins initially, and we keep forgetting this, yes, they got kind of mangled, but the spirit of the plugins was to convert from legacy native APIs on the hardware to one common interface. And then we said, well, that's not going to be enough because we have multiple dialects of Redfish. And so we need to be able to support that as well, right? But the plugins were never about being necessarily the point of aggregation, or for that, we have an aggregation service with its own interfaces.
No, aggregation service is from the operations on the BMC's perspective.
Yeah, but from
In terms of event service, it is the event service itself which is the aggregator of events.
Yeah, but you could arguably say that if we add a telemetry service in, or if we expand the aggregation service to be able to aggregate up and down, that would be the place to do it, right? Because that's the point of scale, the aggregator itself. The plugins just happen to be there because they're necessary evil. And maybe the utopian maybe the utopian yeah, my computer is acting up, so it keeps shutting down. And so the utopian vision of having no plugins could be not realized, but that's okay. It really doesn't matter. It's a consumer and a provider problem.
Well, I think I guess we could discuss the topic of replacing the message bus and be able to do that, and that's really what I think this session is about. But longer term, we can certainly look at proposals on how to re-architect the interfaces between the plugin and ODIM. I think though that for what we have now is well documented in the dev guide, and it's difficult to I mean, we keep coming back to this discussion. So I would like to propose that perhaps Alex, that you write up a proposal and we can look at that, and then we can decide if we want to do some re-architecturing here going forward, and then we align more with
Well, I mean,
what
this is essentially it. Yes, I can put some text around it, but this is essentially it.
Yeah, because it's something that we keep coming back to, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but so question, Alex, is have you looked at the plugin developers guide?
Well, yeah, I mean, so today we've kind of conflated a bunch of things into it. And what I'm saying is that if we want this to be modular and if we want things to be consumable by different distros where you have subsetting and substitution of components, because not everybody's going to want to use Kafka or Redis. You know, I want to be able to use DCAE from ONAP or Prometheus or CollectD. Whatever the transport is, that should be distro specific. That's all I'm saying. Okay, yes, that's not how exactly it is today, but I think this is the goal. And if we're going to make changes, then we need to kind of decide if we're going to just be limited by what's there today, which we've kind of done in a hurry, I suppose. Or if we need to do something a little bit more, you know, intentional, right? You know, because if I present this view to somebody, I incur no penalties on the consumer side in terms of time to value or cost of development or agility of development. I don't have to worry about any of that. I just know exactly what this interface is. Okay, and then within the system, depending on the level of scale, that event service could be distributed across multiple sites. There may be all sorts of, you know, adapters required between, you know, two gateways for a bus. There may be all sorts of other complications here because, you know, we're not assuming that the eventing service is going to be, you know, different for each data center. It could be one across, you know, and then how you deal with, you know, propagation. Well, that's again, an implementation detail.
Yeah,
but here, when you put this event service interface, Alex, is it on the northbound side?
Both. So remember, DMTF defines Redfish in terms of services. Service-centric architecture says there's a set of endpoints. In this case, these are HTTP endpoints that the consumers will use to invoke services, and they will get a response back. Okay. It's like a service catalog on top of any service, right? Here's my list of endpoints. They're defined by DMTF. Here's how you use them. That's all I need to know.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's exactly how it is, Alex. Like
yeah, but so just following on from that, then, Barath, and sorry to interrupt, right? But so Alex, would it be possible then to, you know, because you obviously feel very strongly about this, right? And I think on, you know, the other side of the fence, the guys that actually developed this, there's a bit of confusion because they think you know, what we have is what you're asking for, but we're not sure if that's true or not. So would it be possible for, if you look at the plugin developers guide, could you then, and you're not comfortable with how the implementation is, then perhaps you could suggest how that could be changed. But as you know, as a change from what's in the plugin developers, so at least we'd know what the starting point is, right? You know, this is how it's done today. You know, if you want to change that, then, you know, which bits of the, you know, of the implementation that's described it in the plugin developers guide would you want to change? Is that okay?
Yeah, we can, but it's not just the developers guide, right? It's you know, we have what we have today. There's, you know, we're not saying, you know, that has to change. I think we can simultaneously support, you know, this other model where you just support well-defined, you know, we've kind of crossed boundaries of functionality between the plugin and the other stuff that we have, right? In some sense. And I'm sorry, I keep losing my connection here. So in any case, I'm actually late for the next meeting, but
Yep, me too.
but my point is that we still need to. I mean, when we started planning ODIM and kind of structuring it, we made some very clear statements about what the plugins would do. We talked
Yeah.
about their purpose. They were just translators between something and something. And that's, what it's translating into was the Redfish APIs. Okay. But, no one said that those plugins have to aggregate stuff. They don't have to. That's what we have ODIM to do the aggregation. The plugins just facilitate a conversation between German and French. Okay. And if you keep it that way, then okay, then this shouldn't be a problem. And that's what we sold everybody on. That once you build your plugin, it doesn't require changes if ODIM changes.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here, Brath, but I don't think it does necessarily, right?
It doesn't change.
Well, so okay, Brath, I guess what I'd like to do is see how your diagram maps into this. Like if you were to take the pieces of your diagram and fit it into this, how would that work, right? Notice you don't see anything here that says I need an adapter or a plugin or whatever. All you see is an invocation of an endpoint.
Yeah, but Alex, as you said, this event service interface is on the northbound and the southbound, right? Totally agree with that. But
it envelops the service, yes. And what
yes,
happens within the service is of no consequence to anybody. I mean, we
yeah,
can.
it is not. It is not, because see, when we're talking about the message bus interface today, as it's are in the diagram, it's between plugin and ODIM, which are like parts of the ODIM itself. For the
Mhm.
southbound users, they still use the event service interface to publish the events. And for the northbound interfaces, they register with ODIM service using the same event service interface, Redfish specific. That's it. It's just to push the alarms from plugin to the service event service in ODIM array. We use the message bus. It's like an internal interface between the plugin and the ODIM array. The consumers or the providers of say in terms of BMCs and all, they don't do anything on the message bus. They just publish on the event service interface to the plugin, and event service on the northbound side publishes using the event service interface to the consumers. So there is no disruption. I mean, so when ODIM changes, it changes the thing internally, right?
So all the
BMC
plugins, you're assuming that all the plugins on your diagram are internal to ODIM. It would have to be modified or maintained.
See, because the actual payloads are again event service specified only, right? So the actual payloads don't change. It's just the delivery mechanism from the plugin to the event service, which is message bus. The transport only,
But
nothing else.
who supplies the plugin?
The
The vendor.
plugin, the vendor will have to do that.
Well, that's where I have a problem.
No, but that they have to anyway write a plugin if they have to reconcile their non-compliant Redfish device to ODIM, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the vendor talks pure play Redfish, then they can use the Redfish plugin, right?
Yeah, that's
Then
all
there's
we
no-
need to say. We don't want to expose anything else other than what we've agreed to implement from the MTF perspective.
Yeah.
Pardon me, everyone. It is a little over 15 minutes after, and I myself need to drop for other calls. We've already lost a number of people.
All right.
But before we, I think this discussion is really great. We should probably continue it on the mailing list so that we can include as many people as possible. But or maybe even carry it on to an additional meeting. Before everyone runs, though, I do have something that I'd like to share. And if I could share my screen really quick, give me just 2 minutes. And then if you guys want to continue discussions, that's fine. But I do need to drop.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you. Alex, if you could stop sharing, please. Thanks. I'm just going to share my screen super quick. The community asked me the other day, I mentioned that I was going to help with some templates for the community. I've only recently been able to implement them. I've been out sick with COVID. Sorry about some of my delays in action there. But I did tweak our technical steering committee page a little bit here. You may have noticed. And now on the right-hand side, there is a little create new TSC minutes page for you. This is actually a custom link that I created, which opens up a new template. And it gives you a lot cleaner look. It still needs to be tweaked with, why is it not loading? Okay, maybe I need to go back and tweak the link. Let me show you the template, what it will look like while I have you here. And there's one other template also that I've added, content tools. So this is essentially what the template will look like when you load it. It just has a place for you to tag off your TSC voting members, and then you can tag any LFN staff, and then anybody else that attends the call, you can add them to the other section. And then, of course, it's got a section for you to break down your agenda and your topics and your action items. These action items will actually automatically appear in an action item list for everyone for you to track your individual action items. We can go over that some other time. The other thing, I added a new project proposal template. It seemed the way that project proposals are handled right now are a little bit confusing. Hopefully this will help with that. Where did I put it? Under research and development? Yeah, the tree here is a little bit confusing. But I added some instructions here. A page of instructions on how to go through your project proposals. I think if you follow this process, it will simplify things a lot a bit. Also, for creating the actual project templates, I have a template here that links out with some instructional text in each step so that it will simplify your projects and provide a lot cleaner interface so that anybody coming into the ODIM project will be able to easily find and identify what a project is and potentially how to get engaged. This is really important, especially for new projects when they're trying to bring in new people, to have a clear sense of what projects are active and how to get involved in them. I recommend taking these, a lot of these are approved, but they're still in the project proposal section and there's nothing in your approved projects. I suggest taking this table, kind of eliminating maybe some of the comments or the TSC comments section, approval states, maybe just go a link to the project, a quick description of the project, and then maybe tagging the PTL for the project and put that on the approved projects page. And you can use that template that I just created. And again, there's all kinds of list of instructions, so it'll make it real easy for everyone to go through and have those project pages. Again, that's all I really wanted to show you really quick. I wanted to keep it short and simple. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I need to drop.
Yeah, we don't have PTLs.
No PTLs.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would suggest at least a link to the project itself under the approved projects section, as well as a quick summary table on the main page, and then moving all of your projects that are indeed actually already approved to the approved project section, and that should be the responsibility of the people that are managing that individual project or feature, regardless of whether or not you have a PTL. Any other questions for me? Does that content look good for everyone? I think the template should be quite helpful.
Yep. No more
Yeah.
questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you guys want to continue talking? If you do, that's fine, but I need to drop.
Yeah, I need to drop too, but well, Alex, in conclusion on this one, would it be worth for like next week then or something, you writing up a proposal on how you would change the current method of accessing the message bus to the model that you propose? So it's kind of the changes to what's spec'd in the plugin developers guide. And then we could go through that then.
Perhaps Alex dropped.
Alex has
Yeah,
dropped.
Alex
All
has
right,
dropped.
let's leave it then.
Okay, guys.
All right, thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.